Hi, I'm Sylvanians, and I make videos about Sylvanian families, also known as Calico critters. And today's video is all about Sylvanian village in Grinpa Park at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan. I knew I wanted to go to one of the Sylvania parks on my trip, and this one worked out best in terms of location. Grinpa is an outdoor theme park, and I went there on the 12th of May 2025. While I was there, the Sky Blue Garden event was on, which is when the park plants hundreds of these little blue nemophila flowers, which then bloom throughout May and June. The flowers weren't in full bloom on the day that I went, a big Insta versus reality moment with this picture. But it was still nice, and the Sky Blue Garden wasn't our main reason for going. But I just wanted to explain these logos you'll see in this video, rather than this as the usual Sylvania Village logo. So the previous night I had stayed in the attached campsite in a Sylvania house. I made a complete video and house tour on that, so I'd recommend watching that video as well. But in the morning it was very misty, so I was a little concerned about our trip. This map shows Grinpa Park in its entirety this year, but I'm going to mostly focus on the Sylvania part. Starting with the route in, there's a long path, and this was my first view inside the park, so still very low visibility and I couldn't even see the welcome sign. It did clear up later in the day, so if my video looks better, it's just footage from the afternoon rather than the morning. Along the way in, there were large Sylvania figures. Here are the chiffon dogs, and this is Iona Dale the sheep. She's a bit sun-faded and is holding a hat. I think it's for a little child to fit under it, or if I was willing to kneel in the puddle, but this is the best I got. And the perspective kind of works with baby Ethan. But in the morning, we followed along the path, and finally the Sylvania village sign came into view. And welcoming us were two big figures. This is the Soyakaze cat girl, who's one of the mascots. The inner part of her ears looks like Mount Fuji, not that we could see the mountain on this day. Luckily, her outfit was made of waterproof vinyl fabric. And on the other side was the Nonohana girl with the Mount Fuji shaped muzzle. Again, she has vinyl clothes in a pretty chartreuse colour to match the actual figure. And she made the perfect photo spot, but it certainly looks better when it was brighter later in the day. And here's a quick view of the rest of the park, which I will show you later. But first is this section beyond the welcome sign. It looked like this from a distance, but this was it in the mist. Some large figures, including Alex Periwinkle acting as the photographer, and he's in front of a photo spot with some benches and lots of characters. Aidan Osborne had his burger, but this was not the ideal weather for a photo. Cocoa Chocolate was sat on another bench, and none of these figures are the flock style, so they're safe to be outside in all weather. Along this path was another area. It had a bell, which was a lot louder than I was expecting, and Cedric Walnut was there standing guard. The next area is the school, based on the St John's School building. This is the back, which looks very like the actual Sylvanian school even in the mist. And beside that was a playground. I did have a walk along the beams and the stepping stones. Some babies are waiting outside the school at a bus stop, and these were very faded from the sun as their tunics should be blue. Silk Cat Holly Golightly is in the back. Little Creme Chocolate got to sit down on the bench, and close-up kind of shows how the figures did look a bit worn and in need of a repaint. The front of the school looks more like the Sylvanian version, and this sign says it's a school. Outside is a walnut squirrel, and they're holding a book which says Invention. I don't recognise this exact outfit, so I'd love to know if this is a specific figure or just a different outfit for Yardley. Please tell me if you know. But going into the school was a nice respite from the damp outside. There's a poster of the chocolate rabbits and a shelf for your shoes to be taken off. Here's a sneak peek and my actual reaction going in. So yeah, this had a large diorama setup going around two sides of the room and lots of sets in the middle. Weirdly, some streamers from the ceiling too. We had this whole room to ourselves for quite a long time, so I could look at all the details. The amusement park section first. then some boats on the water, and seaside sets. Then went into the hill section with some houses, and more here including the house on the hill.
It's so full up. Those Dalmatians.
The Japanese version of the Dalmatians here, and just lots of families which have now been discontinued. The Red Roof Country Home had a centre spot with lots of vegetable patches, and there was a fake river with a bridge over. There were some of the newer families in there too, like the fennec foxes and the reindeer, so I assume they have updated this at some point in the last couple of years. Then some buildings to make a shopping street. There were lots of stores and customer figures too, and I liked the rainbow in the sky on the background. And here's one last overview. There were some buttons which you could press and hold down to make the dancers in the ballet studio move. I think the tiaras need moving back onto their heads a little. And then we got to the cabinet displays. So the Berry Grove School, with the music lesson going on at the front. The Forest Cafe Terrace with an ice cream cart. And the house on the hill at the bottom. These boards have a kind of timeline of the sets on. And this with the late 90s into the early 2000s. This was just printed to look like a chalkboard. And then two more timeline boards here, with the latest being 2022. And a couple of cute framed photos on the walls as well. These colourful display boxes each had one building in, and there was a label with set names and release year. The houses and shops had the families which canonically live or work there, like Delia Doherty and the Rainbow Nursery. One of the starter homes for the chocolate rabbits. This house I had never seen before is wooden with a pink roof, and the Nonahana family are in there. Here's a closer look with the name label. So doing some research, I found out that it's this house, which is made out of wood and was exclusive to the Grinpa theme park in the early 2000s, but it's no longer sold. But that's always fun to see something that I didn't know existed, and will probably be the only time that I get to see it. Moving along, they had the Forest Nursery, with some of the paper pieces not quite folded correctly. Then the Sylvanian Market, and a treehouse scene, the Primrose Nursery series, and the original Sylvanian kitchen. This is St John's School with the sports day going on outside. I think I was telling my husband that this was the building we were in. The mid-90s bakery, and the Misty Forest fairy tale castle. They'd use cotton wool to look like clouds. This is the Water Playland, which is part of the 90s Baby Park series in Japan. Then the big Misty Forest Sky Castle set, again with cotton wool clouds and some fairies. And the Sunny Room on the bottom shelf. More Baby Park series here with the 1995 Play Tree, and the Dressmaker, which was known as the Village Boutique in the UK. Moving to the other side, this had some of the Urban Life range of families, and then the first Sylvania house with the Babblebrook rabbits. And this is another house I didn't recognise. So it isn't an actual house, but one made up of pieces, which was known as the unit house system. So you could make all sorts of styles of houses with that, both big and small. but I loved this little one they'd made for the raccoons. The original mole hole house for the McBurrows, and the memory time wooden house, which looked a bit empty with the Wildwood grandparents. Then the white nursery, and the white house, so lots of older sets, but also the newer ones like the Hillcrest home, which is known as the House on Breeze Hill in Japan. Also the brick oven bakery, complete with Mrs. Bramble the baker. The red roof log cabin. These buildings are from the last 15 years or so, and easier to get nowadays. The Starry Point Lighthouse. But then another rarer set with the 1990 Big Forest House. More misty forest with the gingerbread house and juice fountain. Balcony house with the Babelbrooks again. And the Urban Life Pink Corner house. This is the brown 90s grocery store. And finally the original forest restaurant, so lots of amazing pieces. There were more large figures as well, and these look like they've been kept inside, so were better condition. And I popped Ethan and Asta on top of Buster Slidell. So yeah, this was amazing to see so many rare sets in one place, and the dioramas were lovely and full too, with so much to see, and I loved taking my time in here and looking at everything. But then we popped our shoes back on, because the next area is going to be this one with the windmill and swing. It looked like this through the mist, which was a little spooky. There were more of the Nemophila flowers planted here too, but slightly less in bloom. The windmill is based off the old mill, released in the 90s by Tommy in the UK, and is definitely recognisable. Inside are two more large figures. These are the two exclusive girls, and I think this was another photo spot, but I didn't really realise because of all the stuff in the back. Also, there was tinsel above them for some reason. The harnesses on the left are for the swing, and this could have been a really nice view if it's clearer, but very peaceful nonetheless. And the swing wasn't operating due to the weather. I think it opened later, but had a separate cost. The swing was installed last year to celebrate 20 years of Grinpa Park, so a relatively new addition. I loved seeing such an iconic building, but I would have loved it more if there was a little more inside to make it look like an actual mill, like maybe some flour bags. It also had a nice vantage point, so I think more could have been made of that for better weather days. The next area is another iconic building in the green roof house on the hill. This is my favourite Sylvanian house in my collection due to the large size and lots of rooms. So it was amazing to see the real life version at Grinpa. The landscaping looks like the gardens of the house. And this sign says how it's the home of the periwinkle milk rabbits, and they and the cotton rabbit families built the house together. Kate Periwinkle is outside with a baby in a buggy. And then here's the house. So we can go up the path, and then there's a green mailbox outside. That's closed on both sides. And unfortunately the house was too. I could peek in the windows, and this was a bathroom. And the front door was closed, but we could see some of the periwinkles just inside. This is the main room with a kitchen, dining room space, and more of a living room in the back with red sofas and armchairs. And the fridge beside the window in the kitchen. This was the view across the park from the porch area. Round the side was Saffron Warner and Oliver Periwinkle Milk Rabbit climbing a ladder. And then it was a bit scruffy back here, to be honest. But the mist had cleared a little, so we could see the house we stayed in the previous night. The house on the hill doesn't have a back in real life, so this is just how they imagined it. And that's the main room from the other side through the window again. So I was quite disappointed we couldn't go into the house on the hill, especially as there didn't seem to be a reason, unlike the weather closing the swing. But I've now seen that a few weeks later they've put some scaffolding up around the house and visitors can't get near at all. So I am actually grateful that we went when we did, and I could peek through the windows, and hopefully they are improving it to open in the future. The last major Sylvanian section was back to the entrance area. So one view from the side, and from more of a distance. In the centre was a photo studio. This is like a more compact version of the Sylvanian photo studio, but still recognisable with the building colours and art-shaped entrance. Inside here was a little photo booth, which costs 600 yen to do. It's run by Famipri, and you get a printout of the photo, but can also download the pictures on their website afterwards. It tells you poses to do, and there are some super cute Grinpa themed backgrounds as well with the Nonahana rabbits. Beside that was the Sylvanian market, so that's this building. And this A-frame sign was by the door. But as soon as we went in, we saw the giant Nonahana family figures. These ones are flocked, unlike the ones outside, and I love that this is what greeted you at the shop. Of course, I had to get a photo with them. A quick view of the shop, but I knew I wanted to go and see the exclusive figures. So some of the individual and baby duos are here. And then these were the boxed families, which cost 4,700 yen each. A version of the starter house which came with the Freya and Nonahana girl, and then a sign about the Mount Fuji shape on the figures. And they had lots of these sets available on a custom display stand. Elsewhere in the shop there were stickers, keyrings and those type of accessories. Then some exclusive sets. On the end cap were newer ones and the mini jigsaws, so I got to see the new wedding couple too. Then more of the larger sets. I got to see the tiny snowbird babies for the first time, but I just couldn't justify getting the house solely to get them. Lots more figure and smaller play sets. Some big buildings. Then families and babies along this wall. And there were also displays of the sets to buy as well. Now unfortunately, at this point in the day my camera actually broke, and I had filmed a large display in the back there behind the Nonahanas, but I didn't realise that my camera hadn't stored the last recording. So unfortunately I've lost the footage of the majority of that display, but it was very cute. And thankfully I did take a photo of a large set of families in the centre, which featured some long discontinued ones like the grunt pigs, Beaufort polar bears and the petit fur guinea pigs. I switched to my phone camera for filming thereafter, so at least got a little bit of the display here. These displays were in front of the till counter area. And this is the actual counter with lots of sets. There were some cute babies on the actual till, and these Sylvanian Whipple items as well. There's a tiny figure of the Nonahana rabbit as well, which I had to take a photo of. And then 6 Thailand Sylvanian family Gashapon machines, which were all fully stocked with the recent series. The shop was super cute with little babies and signs all around, and also posters as well. If you've seen my haul video, you'll know that I did buy lots from the shop, and those unboxings will be coming soon. The shop was a little smaller than I expected, but it was really quiet and the staff member was fine with me filming. There was also a lottery, but I didn't take part as I wasn't interested in the prizes. One disappointing thing was the sold out sign on the Nonahana display, which I'm guessing is for the Nonahana baby keyrings, which I would have liked to get, but overall it was a really nice shopping experience. Still in the same area, the museum was attached to the shop. So we walked along, and they had some posters. Then a big display cabinet full of figures. The exchange pupil duos on the left, and then large families with grandparents included. I love this version of the cottontail grandparents. These are the Soyokaze cats, which have never been produced for sale. They were made in 2009. And then of course the Nonohana rabbits right in the centre. And they were first released in 2004 when Sylvania Park Grinpa opened. Below each family were the biographies and names. This corridor had lots on the walls, like cute stickers. Then another display case of the families. The top row looked to be the original 1985 families. So here's a better look. They have all the family members included, unlike at the 40th anniversary exhibition. I've got no idea why Holly Wildwood was such a different colour. And I noticed the Grandma Pearl Babblebrook was missing. Then the solitaire cat family. And the ivory cats from the 80s Urban Life range. More from the Urban Life families, and they wear fancier clothes than the regular series counterparts. This poster matched the characters to their jobs. And now an overview of the main museum room with a large diorama in the centre. These were in similar display cabinets to the one in St John's School, but with different buildings. Some relatively newer families from the 2010s and 2020s with space for more. The Woodbrook Beavers and Dalmatians. Then in the corner was a large fake tree. Some bigger houses were on display here. I think these sets around the window were a bit faded from the sun. This display cabinet included international sets, so some of the Calico critters range from Canada and the USA, and the UK sets too, which obviously I'm more familiar with. The Blue Roof Grand Mansion wasn't released in Japan, and they had some strange colour bulrush frogs on the balcony. And these are more versions of families not released in Japan, so I'm sure Japanese visitors found this part more interesting than I did. The sign highlighted the gripping hands we got in the UK. These are more recent families from the 2020s, so very recognisable to all of us as they're mostly still in production. These mulberry raccoon figures were the hard unflocked style that were outside. And there was another tree in the corner. And now onto the diorama. So the Sylvanian kitchen is bustling with figures. The landscaping had little trees throughout. Then the Sylvanian market building, along with an ice cream stall. All of these are buildings which were in Grinpa Park at some point, and they were beautifully set up. A little pond, then the large house. This house is one you can stay in now. The mill on the hill was truly on a hill. And then the St John's School, with lunchtime going on downstairs. more houses in these cabinets, with a wedding reception going on here. Then the town series. And this had more of the town series buildings on a street scene. I think this is a table for workshops, and then a poster of birthdays. And the final display had a ski scene in. I did really like this museum, and being able to see all the figures in families rather than spread around like in St John's School. I also thought the main diorama was fantastic with so much detail, like the cotton wool in the bath, and just how full everything looked. There was a way for you to go into the centre of the diorama, which was definitely meant for children, but I had to have a go. And then inside the centre, it really felt like you were in Sylvania, with lots of little trees, and getting to look up at the buildings. So overall, this museum area was great with nice setups to see everything. And again, we had the room completely to ourselves to take everything in for as long as we liked. There were also photo spots and figures in other areas of the park which aren't labelled on the map. So the chocolate rabbits with what I'm guessing would be a nice view of Mount Fuji. These cutouts of the flora rabbits. And they now look much better surrounded by the blue Nemophila flowers. This little area was for the pedal ride. And throughout the whole Sylvanian area, they were playing music, which you might have heard in the background of my clips. That was fun, though it did get a little repetitive after being there for hours. Away from the solely Sylvanian things, and I'll talk about the restaurant. Outside were Fraser Chocolate and Sebastian Whiskers in chef costumes, and they looked much better later in the day. Sebastian was holding a model cat bread. The restaurant is called the Wild Grill Hungry. It actually used to be a Sylvanian kitchen one, and the outside does remind me of the building. So here's some photos of what it used to look like. And they had Sylvanian themed food as well. The outside of the restaurant is still the same shape, but there's no sign of Sylvanians inside anymore. There were musical instruments on the walls. And some signs in German and English. It almost seemed like a hunting lodge kind of theme now. In terms of other areas, we had the whole day at Grinpa, so we did fully explore the park, including the non-Sylvanian parts, but I didn't really film much of these. The other big area is for Ultraman, and that's where the Ferris wheel is. And this facade covered an inside arcade area. So that's all the Sylvanian attractions in Grinpa for 2025. I know in the past there used to be a bakery modelled after one of the 90s ones, and that actually sold shaped bread products, which would have been so fun to try. But unfortunately there was no sign of that when I went, and I'm not quite sure when it was removed. And up until this year there was another house, which looked like the big house with the red roof. I've seen photos of this from 2024, so I do think it was only a recent removal, and the area is just empty now, so that's kind of sad. At some point there was also a mini Ferris wheel with field mouse figures. It's on this old map, and is also still listed on the Sylvanian Village Grinpa website, though it isn't actually linked. That had gone by the time we went as well. Grinpa was free for us to get in as we had stayed at the campsite, but I think it would have only been a couple of $1,000 for tickets anyway. We could leave our suitcase at the reception desk for 400 yen, I think, rather than dragging it round all day. Overall, I'm glad that I went to Grinpa, but it definitely looked better in years previous. Unfortunately, the park does seem to be removing the Sylvanian attractions rather than adding ones, And that, coupled with the outside being kind of worn and not cared for, makes it a little disappointing Sylvanian-wise, other than the museum and schoolhouse exhibitions. I would love to see Epoch invest more money into the park and make more of the amazing location near Mount Fuji. And hopefully the house on the hill is getting a lovely renovation and people will be able to go inside again in the future. The other two parks in Harvest Hill Osaka and Ibaraki seem more modern, with recreations of recent sets, as well as more events generally. But that being said, there is a certain charm about the older style of Grinpa, being able to see Mount Fuji, and of course the opportunity to stay overnight in one of the Sylvanian houses too. So while I don't think I'll be revisiting Grinpa anytime soon, it might be worth going for nostalgia and the overall experience. If you have any insight on Grinpa or want to go, I'd love to read any comments, especially if you can compare it to the other parks, and I can also answer any questions you have about Grinpa. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you like Sylvanian Families content, then subscribe to my channel, as I post videos every week about everything Sylvanian, including hauls, unboxings and news, and I've still got a couple more videos to post from my Japan trip.